Hey, it's Matt from Gravity Forms. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to build a headless interactive donation progress tracker. It's a mouthful. I'm positive we'll have a good time. Let's get a couple concepts out of the way. WordPress has what's called a REST API. And through that REST API, people can knock on the door of your WordPress website and access things like content from posts and pages, post titles, post content, etc. It's a fantastic way for WordPress to be leveraged as a content management system, but then have front ends displayed or built that display that content without having to load WordPress. This is a long-standing sort of tech approach to doing headless with WordPress. Gravity Forms also enjoys some of that REST API goodness. If we go to settings, we can create REST API keys, if you will. When you click on add key, you simply name it. You give it the permissions. What do I want to do with this data when someone knocks on the door? Do we want to just read this data? Do we want to write into our Gravity Forms database, or do both, read and write? And you would select what that permission level is, click on add, and then these keys here are going to be what you will need for today's demonstration. Again, the large concept here is to look at WordPress, and especially Gravity Forms, as this headless system. In other words, this is a database of content that you want to access and display in either ways that WordPress doesn't support, or you want to get a little bit more creative, which is what we'll kind of hint at in today's demonstration. So really powerful stuff, kind of technical, using a bit of AI, but hopefully we'll have some fun doing this. So I'm going to close this because we're not going to use those keys. I already have another set of keys. First thing we'll do is create a very basic form. So we'll call this marathon donation. And we're going to keep things very easy. I'm going to do 3 fields only. And we're going to label these. So we're going to say name, donation, edit the choices, 25, 50, 100, show the values, 25, 50, 100. And then this will be our message. So I'm not even using a real payment field on this one. That way we don't have to set up all the Stripe stuff or PayPal stuff, whichever merchant account you want to use. This is just very, very basic and for demonstrative purposes only. Basic name field, donation field using the radio buttons, and then a message field. The 3 most core things, except for maybe email, that you'll probably need on a donation form. And much like a GoFundMe or any other kind of sort of nonprofit donation raising platform, you kind of see this progress bar go across. You see the little social message that somebody put in during the donation. That's what we're going to build today. And I'm not a developer. Chances are maybe you're not a developer, and we're going to use something called Bolt because for us, it's going to make life a whole heck of a lot easier. So let's go ahead and first start with a very basic feature. I think it's very important to get success with these tools is to take it one step at a time. Instead of trying to ask it to build this whole thing all at once, we're going to start with a very, very minimalistic approach. So we're going to ask it to build me a React app that displays a table of data from my Gravity Form side of WordPress using the REST API. Here are my keys. So I have a set of API keys that I already have configured. Once again, these keys will be burned after this video, so you won't have access to it. There is a few things you want to pay attention to. Number 1, if we go to the embed option inside of Gravity Forms, we can see form ID 13. This is important because what we can do in our AI app is say, identify the form ID 13. What we're doing here is just for testing purposes. I would never even ship a live production app with those API keys baked into the app. There's a lot of other configuration you would have to do, like secret keys. It really depends on where you end up hosting something like this. That's for a future video. Everything moving on from this point should just be taken under the umbrella of testing purposes only, okay? So we're gonna say form ID 13, copy this. Use form ID 13, and then we have name, donation, and message fields. Look for name, donation, and message fields to display in our table. You could get a little bit more granular depending on the size of your form. And if you were to click on, let's say, this name field, you can see it has ID 1, ID 3, and ID 4 for the message field. You could identify those. What I like to do with AI is cross my fingers and leave it up to chance sometimes. It's sort of the good and bad of using AI. Sometimes it surprises you in ways that you've never even thought of, saving you a whole bunch of time. And sometimes you can really, really wrestle with the results. I hope we don't have to wrestle too much in today's video. So I'm just going to leave it at that. We're going to say Gravity Forms inside of WordPress using the REST API. Hopefully the prompt knows, okay, I need to make a connection with these keys that the user has just input. It's going to look for form ID 13. So when it knocks on the door through the API, it's going to say, where's that Gravity form that has the ID 13? That's the data I want to pull in. And then look for these three fields, name, donation, and message. That's all it has in the form. So I'm hoping it gets it right. Let's go ahead and hit go and see what happens. Bolt is a fantastically easy way to kind of build and prototype these apps. I've had some fairly good success with very small, minimal apps that I've built in the past, especially connecting up to WordPress REST API. So it's going to build out what's known as a React app. You can actually launch this and deploy this to platforms like Netlify. You can bring in your own database backend through their integration with Supabase and all of that fun stuff. So what I did forget to do is give it the URL of my staging site. So let's go ahead and put that in. And you can see right here, it's failed to fetch because I forgot to give it the URL. So my URL is, we're going to add that. I could just browse to the code and drop that in and hit save, but let's just do everything the easy way with AI and just talk to it and say, please just add this stuff to the code for me, because I think a lot of us are going to be in that same boat. So it's going to start to recode this app for us, all JavaScript, and see what the results are. Okay, so there it is. It has what I will call skeleton of our app. It's got a table, date, name, donation, and message. There's no data to display because we haven't input anything yet. So let's go ahead and do that. And we will create a new page, call it Marathon, create, save changes, publish this page. We'll view the page. And we'll do our first donation. We'll do Matt, $100. Here's the first donation. And submit. So now that is in our database. Let's just double check that. So we'll go forms, entries. There's the entry. It's the only form on this staging site. Let's go back to Bolt. We'll refresh the app. Hopefully it pulls in the data. There it is. It has date, name, donation, it says not available, and message, it says 100. So somehow, some way, it is confusing the fields here. So what we would do to help debug this is we'll edit the form, and now what we'll do is we'll tie this to the IDs. Let's make sure that we're looking at the correct field IDs in our Gravity form. So we'll do name is ID 1, donation is ID, was it 3? And then the message is 4. So the donation is ID 3, message is ID 4. And you can see the code coming through here. You can see it connecting up. You can see it writing out the API keys every time. So you can go into the code editor too. If you do fancy yourself capable enough to do that, jump into the code editor, you can make these changes and save that. And the same thing will happen. It'll just live update right here. And now that the fields have been mapped correctly, you can see that the fields are mapped correctly. We have the date that it was first entered, the name, the donation, and here's the first donation. So let's just recap where we're at so far. We're just using human readable prompts. We're not getting super fancy. We're not getting super specific. We're not actually really building anything super technical either, but you can just see that having a sort of easy conversation with Bolt is producing a result that, would take a developer handful of hours. I'm not a developer. Maybe they can do it faster. Maybe it takes longer. I don't know. But what I do know is that through Bolt and the benefit of WordPress REST API and Gravity Forms as a great form input data capturing layer, we can take data from Gravity Forms and then display this in other apps. Now, where the magic happens, if you're not already excited by this, is I would now want to build out our interactive donation tracker. So I'd like to add a new page that tracks the progress of our donations in a more interactive way. This is for raising money to run the Boston Marathon. I'd like the goal to be 5,000. Show a progress tracker. The total amount of donations, the average donation, the total number of donations, and below that, messages from the donors using the name field and the message field. It's about as specific as I want to get with that. And hopefully, fingers crossed, Bolt does a pretty good job understanding that prompt. It's probably going to build us a new page to click on. It might not just redo the page that it was displaying us, but hopefully a nice looking progress tracker with the data points that I mentioned, and then a little social interactive thing, right? The typical thing that we're seeing on the GoFundMe pages of the world where it's like, hey, this person made a donation. Here's the message that they sent. Here's the dollar amount, et cetera, et cetera. So I might cut to letting this finish, and then we'll be right back. Okay, it took a minute for it to finish. You can see over here on the left-hand side, here's the results from that prompt. It said, I've created a new interactive donation progress page with the following features: visual progress bar, 3 stats cards showing the total, the average, and the total number, a donor message section, and added a toggle between the progress view and the original table view. So we can see that right up here. We can switch back to our table view, or we can see this more progress bar tracker. And this is really cool. We have our $5,000 goal, the total raised at 100, the average donation, and 1. And that's me. That's the example that we put in. So before we change any of this, let's go ahead and go back to our site. Pages, all page. View the marathon page. I'm going to put another donation in, Bob at 25. Here's 25. Submit. And we'll load it one more time. We'll do Sally, 50. Have fun at the marathon. So I just want to get a couple other test entries in our Gravity form, and now we'll refresh the page, see if that changes the values. And it certainly does. We're now at 175 because we added a 50 and a 75. You can see our average donation now is 58.33 with a total of 3 donors. So very cool to see this application reaching out to WordPress, ingesting that data, and then displaying it here in our React app to be hosted somewhere else on the internet. I'm not really in love with this progress tracker. So let's prompt it as the great designers that we are. Pretend this is for the Boston Marathon 2025. Can you match a design that looks closer to that? This design is very basic. Improve it! Exclamation point. Never yell at the AI bots. You never know what's going to happen. But in this example, let's see what it does. Like I said before, I might cut to the end of this depending on how much code it's writing, and I'll see you on the other side. Okay, like I mentioned at the top of the video, sometimes AI can be amazing and excite you in some ways and then really just fall flat on other ways. So it did some interesting things here. So the Boston Marathon is 11 days away, April 21st, 2025. It sort of puts this little progress tracker up here that says, hey, there's only 11 days to go, sort of entices folks to leave that donation. The cards have been emphasized a lot more. There's a little bit more separation between the background, though I don't know what it's doing with the background, and this is one of those failure points. The progress bar still does not look good to me, but it did put a nice title at the top, Road to Boston Marathon, did a little byline, cleaned up some of the not testimonials, but the messages here from the donors. That looks fairly nice. And it threw in a card for Boston Marathon facts, which is, just a nice little touch to this. And that's some of the exciting things, but you can see that I'm not really sure what's happening with this background and really not sure what's happening with this progress bar. Let's try the progress bar one more time. Can you improve the styling? And I'm going to leave the spelling errors in there. Can you improve the styling of the progress bar? Still not happy with it. Okay. Let's see what it does. I might not have to cut for this one. This one might be a little bit faster, but let's see. A couple of things as we get to the tail end of this video. A few other points that I just want to address. Number one, protect those API keys. You certainly don't want to send those out publicly. You want to make sure that you're keeping those keys as private as possible. Certainly in this example, I can't stress this enough. I'm giving the app the ability to have those API keys right in the code. You certainly don't want to do that either. Once you deploy this to something like Netlify, which Bolt connects up with, you want to use their environmental variables in the right way with your hosting. It's pretty technical. If you're non-technical like me, you definitely want to double check with somebody who knows what they're doing before going live with pulling in data like this. So always protect your API keys. Never bake them in to a publicly available app like this. Progress bar looks a heck of a lot better now. It's got this cool little animation where it's kind of like glowing. I didn't ask for it, but it's a lot more readable, and it has a nice little progress there. It says 175 raised with 3.5% as the total. It's got these nice little progress indicators here once we get over those marks. And if we go to the donor list, it even upgraded the style of our table, which looks really cool. And again, the more powerful things here is leveraging that data inside of WordPress, using it as a real content management system that it is. And then for Gravity Forms, using Gravity Forms as the best way to get data in and sometimes out of your WordPress website. Thinking of Gravity Forms and its entries as a database itself, right? It's not, everything doesn't have to be in post pages, custom post types, custom fields. You can leverage Gravity Forms as a way to store data, access data, and then manipulate data like we're doing here with Bolt. This has been a fun experiment in thinking of new ways of using Gravity Forms with AI and certainly with a headless environment. Let me know what you think in the comments below. As always, subscribe to the channel if you want more. What do you want out of your AI and Gravity Forms experience? Let us know in the comments.